Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our second installment of the Embracing the Un-Normal webinar series. Now, it's nice to see many familiar names from last week's webinar joining us again today. Welcome back. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, a very warm welcome to you. We hope you will enjoy today's topic. Now, before we start, I'm Iza. I am the Strategy Director at Illuminate Asia. As usual, a little housekeeping before we get started. First and foremost, please ensure your audio is muted and turn off your video. And the presentation will take roughly about 30 minutes. This will be followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. Now, we may not be able to cover all questions today, but we will try our best. You can use your chat feature to send your questions directly to me. If you click on the chat icon, you can look for Iza Muhammad, that's my name, and send me the questions directly. And we will post the recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel. The link will be sent to you after the session together with a PDF copy of our presentation. So about today's topic, we are very excited actually to share with you our analysis and understanding of how Indonesian consumers create meaning through foods and beverages. This is a topic that's very close to our hearts because, as most of you might have known, at Illuminate, we view everything through cultural lens. We love to use cultural insights and semiotics to identify changes and trends as they begin. So during this pandemic, as Indonesians started experiencing restrictions in their daily lives, just like the rest of the world, we began to utilize our in-house expertise on semiotics to understand the cultural shifts that has been happening around us in Indonesia. So it is with great respect that I introduce our speaker for today, my colleague Haris Rahmanto. Haris is a strategy director at Illuminate Asia. He is no stranger to the F&B category and FMCG category, having spent many years on the client side in the FMCG sector. Now, Haris is a trained semiotician and a passionate marketer with a total of more than 17 years experience in marketing, brand management, consumer behavior, and cultural insights. Haris is also a lecturer in a leading business school in Indonesia, teaching marketing and research methods, and he is also a regular speaker at regional and global conferences. So let's not wait any further. I now virtually hand over the microphone to you, Haris.
Thank you, Iza. Yeah, it's a virtual handover, definitely, yeah. Okay, I'm going to share my presentation. So I hope you can see it now. So again, thank you for being here. Good morning. And this is a very tough topic. First, because it's a pandemic. It's the strangest time of all. Second one is because the topic is about food. And I know most of you are fasting. So please bear with me for the next 30 minutes. Hang on until later at 6 p.m. Yeah. So I'm going to present a topic we call the title "How Indonesian Consumers Create Meaning Through Foods and Beverages During the Pandemic." So last week we talked about the consumer behavior, consumer shift in general. So today we want to focus more on foods and beverage category because if we look at the situation right now, a lot of social changes happening, and I think food culture is one of the most impacted by the COVID-19 situation. Yeah. So if we are handling food and beverage brands either in the FMCG area or in the F&B retail area, we need to be able to anticipate these changes to remain relevant with this unnormal condition. So this is the background why we are interested to explore about this this condition. Okay, this is the burning questions I think that we have in mind while we are trying to dig out this topic. The first one is, what is the underlying shift in terms of culture in food and beverage consumption in Indonesia during the pandemics? And the second one is, how can food and beverage brands apply this semiotic thinking to develop solutions and communicate to consumers in the right manner during the pandemics? Because like what we showed last week, some of brands do not communicate well in terms of they are still looking as selfish as they always be, talking about themselves instead of talking about the consumers. So we want to avoid those kind of pitfalls, definitely. So I want to talk you through a bit about the methodology, because maybe this is something that is quite new for many of you. The methodology is called semiotic analysis. This is actually borrowed from the realms of literature. Yeah, so basically, semiotic is the study of the meaning of cultural signs and symbols. I always like to put an example that if you talk about consumption, people actually buy brand not because of the product, but because they buy the meaning. For example, if you see people buying very expensive handbags, Louis Vuitton, for example, they are actually buying the symbol behind the Louis Vuitton brand. Because if they just buy the function, might as well just use a plastic bag instead. Yeah. So it's not just for Louis Vuitton. Yeah, it happens to any brands. Either it's FMCG brands, either it's a retail brand. What people buy from you is not your product per se, but they're actually buying the symbols, buying the meaning from your brand. So it is very important for us to adopt the semiotic thinking. So it's not just a research methodology, it is also a thinking process. Why? Because by using this semiotic thinking, seeing our brand as a symbol, seeing the thing around us as a sign that needs to be interpreted, we can be more mindful. We realize that our brand consists of signs and symbols that can deliver meaning to our consumers. And we need to be mindful that consumers buy things because of the meanings attached to those things. So we always try to see our brand as a system of symbols, as a system of signs. So we need to make sure that we deliver the right meaning through our symbols and signs. So basically, that's the basic of semiotic thinking. So this is the basic elements of semiotic thinking. If you see this picture over here, so it is the picture of a pine tree. So pine tree by itself is called signifier. Just to describe what the picture means, yeah, signifier. It can be the pine tree itself, can be the color green, can be the leaves or something. But this pine tree also convey a connotative meaning that we call the signified. Signified, if you look at pine tree, for example, it signifies health, can be natural or environmental. It is not said there, yeah, it is not shown that this pine tree is natural, but we make the mental connection that if you look at this pine tree, it means natural. It conveys environmental in our mind. Can somebody mute their microphone, please? Yeah, thank you. A very interesting example of this, if you look at the color green, yeah, there is a new meaning in the color of green if you look at social media. So green usually connotes nature, sometimes also connotes with Islam. But somehow in social media, if you look at Twitter, there is a new meaning to green. So green somehow now also signifies poverty, yeah, kemiskinan if in Indonesian. So if you just try to search poverty green, you will know what I mean. But I'm not talking about that right now. So you can replace this tree with anything else. You can put your brand over here. The signifier can be the name of your brand, or the color of your brand, or anything that is attached to your brand. The signified is the meaning of your brand that you want to deliver to your consumers. So that's how we look at things through the lens of semiotics. This is our process. Yeah, we use this discipline of semiotics to understand the shifts in consumer culture. So the question about semiotic is, what is the source of data? Because we do not do interviews like the traditional research, you do focus group discussion or in-depth interview or quantitative interviews. What we do is we collect signs from our cultural realm, which actually coming from social media, from news sites, from blogs, from YouTube videos, from advertising, anything that we think contains signs that might symbolize the shift in the consumer culture. So on this board, we collect more than 100 signs. We had a small workshop in my team just to collect these sources. And then we interpret these signs, yeah, the meaning of these signs, yeah. We analyze them. There are two ways, bottom-up analysis and the top-down. I don't want to bore you with details. I think we can talk about the details later in another occasion. So basically, from this so many signs that we see, we group the signs into codes. We call it codes, cultural codes, to understand the underlying cultural change. So I will show you the process, the result, yeah, right after this. So this is the finding of our research, yeah, our semiotic study. So we found 8 semiotic codes, 8 cultural codes that have emerged during this pandemic in Indonesia. So I will go through one by one in detail, but just to make you familiar with the visual here, there are 2 axes, the X and Y axis. So the X axis is actually, the left one is, we call it enduring. So it is about how to face the situation, how to get through the pandemics. The right one is growing, yeah. So it's not just about enduring the situation, but also to grow, to go beyond what you were before you faced the pandemics. And then on the y-axis, the bottom part is more on the personal level, and the top part is on the social level. So we have 4 quadrants here. For example, this top left quadrant is about enduring in the social space. The top right is growing in the social space. The bottom right is growing in the personal space. Bottom left is enduring in the personal space. So that's how we read the axis. Yeah. So we have 8 codes here. The first one is hold social bonds together. The second one is compassion and solidarity. The third one is FOMO culture, fear of missing out. And then the fourth one is simulation of normalness. The fifth one is survival. The sixth is food as the defender. The seventh is maintain mental health. And the eighth code is respect for simple things. So I'll start with the first one, holding social bonds together. So the function here, sorry, is to connect with others, yeah. Because Indonesians are very social, yeah. So connection with others are very important, especially during this pandemic where you cannot have a physical interaction with other people, yeah. So food is a way to keep social connections, either via gifts and also a way to share experience. We see means like gifting foods to friends and family, either by hampers, food parcels, to show love and caring, and also develop a level of closeness amongst the social groups, even when we are physically distanced. And also remote buka puasa bersama among friends, often using Zoom like this, even arisan also happening. So it's more fun, light-hearted, make sure that you are still connected, you feel close even though you are not there physically. So some of the example here, Burger King, this is quite interesting. They held bukber terbesar dengan Whopper. So they send 2,000 Whopper burger to the consumers, and then let the consumers share their pictures of consuming this this product. Yeah, so it's about staying connected with consumers. The second one is compassion and solidarity. So the function is a desire to help others and show solidarity with those facing adversity. I think you've seen this a lot in the social media right now and also in the news, that food is a means of donation for not just people, but also brands. Yeah. So it's about those who are more privileged financially to help others who are less privileged. It can be in the form of food or free meals. Sometimes brands also facilitate customers to be able to easily help. Also, some business give their helping hand, direct donations of food and products. There is also a movement of supporting local business, so helping sustain local communities. It's more about making sure that local brands can survive through the pandemics, making sure that they are still alive. They do not close down because of the pandemics. Yeah. And then the last one is about appreciating frontline workers. I think this is also quite a strong movement right now, giving donations of food to the healthcare workers, making sure that the effort, the sacrifice of these healthcare workers is acknowledged by us. The next one is FOMO culture, fear of missing out. FOMO, I think it's a culture that is dominant even before the pandemics. But what is interesting is that even though people now are facing a very hard situation right now, uh, they still want to make sure that they do not left out. Yeah. So it is still going strong, FOMO culture, even though the situation might be quite restrictive for our consumers. So they still want to maintain the social presence, social relevance. They want to keep up, yeah. Even though they are in isolation, they don't want to be left out from the trends. You see the trends of dalgona coffee, which is quite short-lived. Another trends like cereal, pancake, peanut butter milk, any kind of trends happening just in the space of just 3 weeks. Yeah, so it's very interesting how people are still trying to keep up, even though uh, they face a lot of restrictions from it. The next one is about elevating the mundane. So we see also people trying to elevate simple food to greater status to create a sense of achievement and gain recognition. One of very interesting example is the one on the top right. So there is this Twitter user trying to create her own design simply using bread and chocolate sprinkles. So she just tried to make some art on that on the bread using the sprinkles. Somehow it goes viral. Everyone starts to do the same thing. Even brands like Ceres, it's a blessing for Ceres definitely because they are a chocolate sprinkle brand. So they quickly jump into this trend. Other brands also trying to use this to ride this trend using their brand logo on top of the white bread. Yeah. And then food challenges, a lot of food challenges, especially in TikTok now. So TikTok is also very interesting media. We see people now embracing TikTok. It used to be TikTok belongs to a certain social status, but now I think it's getting more favorable perception. Yeah. So a lot of viral food challenges in TikTok to give a sense of excitement, also to connect to our human desire of being accepted and to fit in. Okay, the next code, which is very interesting, is simulation of normalness. Yeah. So the function of this code, yeah, food is used as a way to relive the normal life, yeah, even though we are going through a lockdown. So some of the signs that we saw, first is that the restaurant foods at home, including high-end restaurants. Um, so people want to replicate the experience of dining out that relates to normal life. Yeah. So they still want to experience eating at their favorite restaurants, even though they cannot go there. A very interesting example is this Shangri-La hotel foods. So somehow some people still want to eat, to have this Shangri-La experience, even though they cannot go there anymore. I mean, if you talk about survival, you don't need Shangri-La to survive, definitely. But there is a different motivation behind why people buy these restaurants foods to consume at home. The next one is supersized foods and beverages. You also see the trend of 1 liter beverage, either it's coffee, boba, milk tea, and so on. So it's about bringing the quality of professionally prepared foods, yeah, making sure that your normal routines remain untouched. So we had quite a discussion about this, whether it is about simulation of normalness or is it about something else. But what we see is if you need your daily dose of Starbucks, now it's it's not possible to just order Starbucks every day. So you still want to have that experience, a kick of coffee, and then what you do is then you just order the 1 liter, making sure that you have enough for one day or Next one is celebration. We know that right now we are almost nearing Idul Fitri. We want to celebrate as normal as possible. Some people still want to go to mosque, but yeah, basically we just want to have the same Ramadan, the same Idul Fitri like last year. So some food is also used to celebrate, even though it's not the same thing like it was before. And which brings us actually to the next one, which is nostalgia, bringing back the days when things were normal. Nostalgia, what is interesting is that when you talk about nostalgia, sometimes it's about 10 years ago, but even people are getting nostalgic with things before the pandemic, yeah, which is just like 3 or 4 months ago. So one of a very interesting example is from Union Cafe, which create their own playlist in Spotify. So to let us as customers to feel that the mood in the restaurant, yeah. So it's like bringing a slice of Union restaurant in your house. Yeah. Just close your eyes and you feel like you're there. So a lot of creative ways actually to execute this simulation of normalness. The next one is survival. Yeah. So the function of survival, of course, is about enabling us to get through the hard times. So I think this is also a very dominant theme right now during the pandemics. People are concerned about the safety and hygiene of their foods, especially when they order the food from outside. So a lot of people now are more mindful in handling their food to avoid contamination and also to achieve optimum safety. Home cooking as necessity. So some consumers maybe they were not able to cook before the pandemics, but now because they are locked out, they have no choice but starting to cook by themselves. So it is a necessity for survival. The next one is online food services. Definitely, this is one way of survival for most of us, either us as a consumer or us as a brand, because definitely you cannot go out. You rely on GoFood, GrabFood, and so on. And as a brand also, because it is getting harder for the consumers to reach you, you have to reach out your consumers by doing the online food delivery. And food entrepreneurs is also a way to survive in a way that because people are losing job, losing money, so they try to survive by selling food. Yeah, so this gave rise to food entrepreneurs, which also the same thing situation with 1998. If some of you were at my age, yeah. So during crisis, there are so many food entrepreneurs rising. So I think this is also one of these the same occasion. The next one is food as the defender. So it is about fighting against the evil. You see a lot of people now consuming jamu, traditional herbal, to fight the foreign evils. So it is believed to protect against the coronavirus, even though it is not proven scientifically yet for some. A very interesting case here, if you read the news about DPR or the House of Representatives, they have this COVID-19 task force. So they claim that they have found herbal medicine for COVID-19. And apparently some of the materials were imported from China, which actually created outrage because Indonesia have a very strong Jamu heritage, a very strong diversity. But why do they have to import the material from other country? So this sparks controversy and also sparks a sentiment of nationalism. So if we connect with a bigger cultural theme, it's also about people who are getting more and more nationalistic right now. So the rise of nationalism is also one of the cultural trends outside this pandemic as well. And the next one definitely is about healthy foods during quarantine. So a lot of people now starting to consume healthy foods because they want to improve immunity. They want to ensure that they are staying in shape, making sure that because they may be having less exercise, staying at home. So they try to balance by eating something healthier. The next one is about maintaining mental health. So a lot of topic, very interesting here, because food is also the caretaker of the minds. Yeah. There are ways, there are different signs that we can use. The first one is about nostalgia, the same like the quote in simulation of normalness. So it's about comparing how things were with how things are. Sorry, bringing back what was good in the past to provide sense of assurance and stability. So one of the very good example is Walls Viennetta. This is one of the most sought after product during this pandemic because it is something that was popular more than 20 years ago, I think. And it is very hard to find also. It brings back nostalgia when things were better, when things were good. And the next one is about comfort food. Definitely comfort food is the place to turn to when you are anxious, yeah, when you are worried. So it's about the familiar taste of comfort food to make sure that we can look forward to the day when the current crisis is over. The next one is about humor. It's about using food to bring laughter and lighten the burden. Yeah? If one of very interesting example is from Twitter. So people post their failed cooking instead of their successful cooking. So I think a lot of food experimenters out there who try to cook something but failed miserably. And it contrary to you in Instagram where you show a very perfect food that you made. Here people are having the joy of laughing at themselves because of they failed to cook something. So they use humor to cope with the situation. Also, food to fight boredom and stress. Yeah? People try to experiment with foods, to try new recipes to make sure that they can de-stress by cooking. Which brings me to the next one is the home cooking trend. It brings a sense of well-being for some, even though for some others cooking is a burden, but for other people it's also giving a sense of well-being, brings a deeper meaning because they are able to create something, they are able to serve their family, making the family happy. And then respect for simple things. So this is also an interesting example to see how food is used as a symbol of inclusiveness and gratitude. If you see this viral video by Edward Suhadi, so what he was trying to say is that he wants to stop people from hoarding foods. So this happens at the very beginning of the pandemic that people go to the supermarkets to buy as many foods as they can. So he used the sunny side up egg to symbolize simple menu that is sufficient for people to consume during pandemic. So no need to hoard food. You can just actually enjoy what you have by just starting with simple cooking. So it became viral, making sure that people can be more thankful with the situation, try to live simpler. And then the next one is about that everyone can cook. So a lot of simple cooking tips in the internet right now for those who are now forced to start cooking at home. So cooking is now not the only domain for homemakers or experts. It is more inclusive that everyone can cook no matter how simple it is. And the last sign is that simple things matter because now when you have more time at home, you have more time to reflect, people start to notice the small things in life that they previously ignored. They begin to recognize and appreciate ordinary things in life, like the food that you had in Warteg, for example. Maybe used to be that you just go there and eat just to fulfill your stomach, but now you start to miss that simple things that maybe during normal times you tend to be more mindless about it. So it's more about being more mindful. So out of these 8 codes, yeah, what is the lesson for brands? How can I utilize it for my brands? So this is how we turn semiotic insights into action by using something called binary opposition, which is a technique in semiotics. So it is a pair of related terms or concepts that are opposite in meaning. Like you see, enduring is the opposite of growing, or personal is the opposite of social. Yeah. How can it be useful? So we do the hard work for you, don't worry. So I use something called semiotic square. Basically, I just take the opposites of endure and grow, and using the approach of semiotic square, I found 4 approaches that we can use to communicate and innovate during the pandemic. So these 4 approaches, you can choose which one do you think is going to work for your brand. Yeah, because you need to make sure that you have also you have aligned your brand essence also with this approach. The first one is to help our consumers to simplify their life. We help them to be more mindful. We help them to be more appreciative. The second one is about strengthening our consumers. Yeah, it's about facilitating our consumers to use this pandemic time to make something better, to be more prepared to come out as a winner in the post-pandemic world. I think one of a very interesting advertising I saw yesterday is from Sasa. I think there is one person from Sasa here also, showing in a cartoon, in anime way, a lady who resigned from her office to follow her dream, to follow her passion, to open her own restaurant. So that kind of thing, it's about empowering our consumers to grow. So that's one of the examples. The next one is about to provide mechanism to cope. Yeah, so it's not about coming out as a winner, but coming up as a survivor. We support our consumers mentally through escapism, giving them safe space and such. And the fourth one is about revolutionizing their life, the way of life. So it's not about what will happen after the pandemic, but what can you do now, yeah, to introduce something new, something radical, so we can help the consumers in a new way that is in tune with the current situation. So there are ways like, for example, you can just bring the restaurant experience at home, just one of the idea, or using a drone to deliver your products and those kind of things. It is kind of revolutionary for Indonesians. Yeah. So it helps them to cope with the situation right now, to fight the pandemics. Yeah. So I have a very interesting example. So this is a very famous brand. Unfortunately, this is not an Indonesian brand. So they use the approach of provide mechanism to cope, yeah, by using the code of simulation of normal life. So I will show you the advertising. Sorry, I think you cannot hear the sound. Yeah. So this is advertising from KFC in UK. Apparently, they don't have a very good delivery network like us here in Indonesia with GoFood and GrabFood. So they use a very strong approach. Yeah, it is about simulation of normalness, where consumers are trying to still able to eat KFC at home by cook the KFC themselves. You see, if you talk about science, the music itself is definitely a sign that, you know, it's about all by myself. They are facing a tough situation, and just looking at the food here, you know that it is definitely not coming from KFC. Like this chicken here is quite poor, and then the drawing is also very interesting. How people try to simulate KFC at home. So this is how we execute the idea using this semiotics code. So the next one is about how to apply this semiotic thinking. I'm dividing this into two sections, how to apply it in innovation and how to apply in communication. So the first one is about innovation. Yeah. So the benefit is that all innovation, either it's product, either it's packaging design, it is a service or something. If you use semiotics, you can make sure that these innovations is rooted in the life experience of human being. So for example, in the ideation phase, it is helpful because we put ideas directly into a cultural context. We assess the idea with regards to the cultural context. There is something called emergent codes in semiotics and the binary opposition that I just showed you. So understanding of what codes are emerging, what codes are dominant, we can make sure that we use the right emerging codes to make sure that our innovation idea is unique and different to the existing products in the market. And then in the prototyping phase, semiotics also help to get a detailed analysis and assessment of our prototype to complement the consumer test. So we can analyze the design, for example, the packaging, the shape, the color, even the brand logo, the font, the flavor choice as well. So any aspects, any signs, any symbols that is attached to your product, you can use semiotics analysis to understand whether it is relevant with the culture and whether it is unique, it is different with the existing products in the market. So using semiotic analysis, we assess every single component of the product, yeah, as if that your product is composed of many different things. We analyze this using the lens of the local culture, yeah. So whether this component perform better, which one that we need to emphasize, which one should we communicate, because a lot of components in our brand, but we need to make sure that we focus on the most relevant one. The next one is applying semiotic thinking in communication. I think I have a very nice example here from Dettol. I'm going to tell you that this is an advertising from 2012 actually, but with the current context, the current situation, it is very relevant to the shifting culture of hygiene. Yeah. So it helps out to create our communication unique against competitors and also relevant with the consumers. If you look at the Dettol advertising, you see the symbols that they use, the signs like hands, to show that when you are holding something, you are actually holding something that was touched by somebody else. So to bring about the fear that you are getting germs from someone else. So it helps to understand and apply the right symbols in the communication and whether it is significant to our particular culture and particular time. Also helps to differentiate our brand communication by understanding what is dominantly used in the market. If you talk about instant noodle, for example, what color are most of the brands using, what visuals and so on. And of course, we don't want to use the same visuals because we want to be different. And the last part is why a semiotics approach is important. First, it is because it is fast and it's quite inexpensive. I know that these are the two important words right now for us marketers, because of course we have budget constraints. Yeah, I think most of you as clients facing some budget issue. So this is quite inexpensive compared to traditional qualitative like FGD or IDI. It is fast. This whole project that we do for this presentation, it took us just 1 week to complete. And then the second one is, it is going beyond qualitative focus group and consumer insights, because we go beyond what is being spoken by the consumers. Who, when consumers are speaking about something, there is a lot of bias in there, because sometimes what they do is different than what they actually say. So semiotic goes beyond what is being said by the consumers. We look at the cultural influences that affects their behavior. And also we detect the subconscious drivers of the consumer behavior, because culture is the ultimate subconscious driver. We can combine with other methodology, definitely with other qualitative or quantitative, to create a very strong triangulation. And finally, semiotic help us to, for strategic purpose like brand positioning, innovation ideas, and so on. And also for tactical purpose like creating product or service or packaging or communication. So let us know, contact us to start applying this semiotic approach to benefit your brand. So finally, have a happy Idul Fitri from all of us in Illuminate. I hope that you have a safe and very cheerful Idul Fitri. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Haris. That's very interesting. So now for the next 10 minutes, we will take your questions if you have any. Again, please use the chat feature at the bottom of the screen to send the questions to me directly, and I will read them out. Now, we have two questions, Haris. The first one, I believe this is related to the semiotic square from Nataya Bagya. The question is, will this work for other brand or products other than food?
Oh yeah, definitely. We've done a lot of semiotic projects outside food category. We've done this for communication. We've done this also for personal care, definitely. Cosmetics, any category, even banking, financial services, transportation. Basically, every single thing that we are using is always conveying a symbol, conveying a meaning. So that's what we are doing. We just try to grab the meaning behind those symbols. Yeah. So yeah, it's applied to any category.
We are surrounded by signs and symbols, right?
Yeah, even like the color of this wall behind me symbolize something.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Okay, now the next question is from Mada Handijaya Dewantara. I'd like to know how the team determined dimensions on the diagram for those 4 dimensions. Again, I believe this is about the semiotic square.
Yeah.
Is there any previous research used as reference or perhaps from other theory?
Yeah. Okay, let me show you again the square. I think it's this one, yeah. Yeah, so the question is how we determine this for access. So I think that's where the skill of semiotician takes part, yeah, because there is no generic, there is no easy way to do it, so to speak. So how did we do this? Usually we group all of these codes, yeah. So we exercise with different kind of maps to see whether there are similar themes. Like, for example, this these themes at the bottom, it's all personal, while the themes on the top, it's all social. So that's how we divide between personal and social. And the one on the left, when we try to group it, I think there are similarities that it is more about, okay, I just need to endure the whole thing until it finishes. The one on the right is more about, I need to grow myself, not just about sitting back and waiting for everything to be over. Yeah. So that's how we do it. We do a lot of exercise by shifting all of these codes and making sure that there are patterns. Yeah. So it's about detecting the patterns.
If I may, it actually involves intense workshop as well among the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we usually have like this project. We had 3 hours workshop, yeah, to try to understand after we collect the science. So we had 3 hours workshop to identify the meaning and to find the codes and then group the codes together.
Okay. Now the next question is from Betty. Thank you for the insight for the new normal situations. Which approach, which one would suit the B2B food business?
Yeah, so we basically designed this in the B2C point of view. But I think some of the learning we can still use it for B2B, yeah, like because I think business also face some similar issues with consumers. Like some businesses trying to survive. So like if you're, for example, if you have clients like a small, medium enterprise selling foods, then you can try to help them to cope with the situation, for example, or just to simplify their process or giving them access to consumers. So yeah, it's not 100% applicable for B2B because the process is basically in the lens of B2C, but I think you can use some of the learnings.
Okay. Any more questions? Do we have any more questions? Please direct the questions to me. Now, okay, we have a question from Andi Ayu Rahayu. Okay. How good or how bad if our brand is not related to what we sell?
we have seen a lot of situations where brands are losing relevance to the consumers. Yeah. If you are not relate your brand to the consumers, maybe you don't see the impact now. But when when you have a new competitor coming in, which may be more relevant to the consumers, then they will start leaving our brand. We've been helping some of our clients to see through that kind of situation where suddenly their brand is losing relevance to the new consumers. I hate to say millennials because 1 billion people out there who can claim themselves as millennials, but some of them like feeling like they are out of touch with this new cohort of millennials. So those kind of things happening, and I think it is the result of losing touch, losing relevance with the consumers.
Yeah, okay. We have another question from Jogi. Which kind of study that semiotics will work best? Comms, PAC, strategy, brand fundamental? So which one?
All. But the first usage of semiotics in marketing is actually for communication. So, but along the way, I mean, I learned semiotics in 2010, so it was like 10 years ago. Along the way, it's going beyond communication. Many of brands are now using semiotics even to find out their brand positioning. So it can be
it's also being
strategic,
used a
can be
lot for
tactical.
packaging. Yeah, it's being used
packaging
a lot for
definitely.
packaging. Yeah. Okay. Now the next question is from Tessie Triadi. Does semiotic analysis, I mean, can semiotic analysis be applicable to the new startup, especially that is SME business and still at the stage of developing the brand and penetrating the market?
Yeah, of course, because one practical reason is because it's affordable. Yeah. What you need is a very strong mind. Definitely need time to learn. But basically, it is one of the most affordable approach if you are an SME, because you just need to be mindful. You just need to be sensitive with all of the cultural symbols that surrounds your consumers. So yeah, it can be used for new business to see whether you can offer something different to your consumers. Because if you're an SME, definitely you don't have enough power to communicate using advertising. So you need to have one strong product or one strong service so people can see something different right away.
Okay. And the next question comes from Grayson Lansrick. How do other manufacturers produce something with nostalgic image? As Vianeta, I mean, the example that you gave is something that was in the market in the past. Yeah. So how can manufacturers apply that?
Yeah, that's correct. It is actually the role of symbols there. Yeah. Because a lot of symbols that you can use to convey nostalgia can be in the packaging. You can borrow the symbols from 1960s packaging design, for example. Also in the communications, you use black and white color instead of a colorful tone. A lot of ways that you can use to borrow this nostalgia, even though your brand is new. So we also did many packaging study in the past, trying to make the brand different, even though it is entering a very cluttered category, and it was quite successful in terms of design. That the packaging is quite stand out in the in the shelves.
Okay. Now we have a few more questions, but before that, I think Dawn wants to clarify, like add on to the answer that you have given earlier.
Hi, everyone.
Dawn?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's Dawn here. I just wanted to clarify on, or add on actually to the question about what type of study is semiotics best for. Actually, if you refer back to one of the earlier slides in the presentation, I think it was slide number 4, if I remember correctly, Harris.
Yeah.
Actually, we talked about some of the different areas that you can use semiotics in. One of the main areas that we use it in would be, one would be around exploratory and innovation. So we help our clients to look at the white spaces and look for what we can, what are the areas that could be innovated in. Another area is, this is the one here. Yeah. Another area is around branding as well. So what are the, we can also help understand the brand and understand the category, understand, what you need to do, what directions you need to do for your branding. Another area is trends. So really keeping up to date with what's happening, what's the newest and latest things that are going on now. Harris mentioned, we can talk to you about this in more detail on a one-to-one basis. It's probably easier, but we do a lot of trends research as well with that. And then finally around communications, which I think Harris also talked about, understanding and helping our clients develop the best communications using this methodology. So I hope that just adds on a little bit for your understanding, but please do get in touch. We'll be really, really happy to take you through in more details as well and give you some examples of some of the studies that we've been doing. Yeah.
And to add to that, in terms of semiotic thinking, we always use that kind of lens, even though we are doing traditional qualitative. So if you do FGD, you do in-depth interview, we still use semiotics as our analytical lens. Yeah. So we always try to see our consumers when we interview them to see whether there are some cultural influence.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I think we have one last question, unless there are any more questions. A question from Zilham Fahmi. Do we need a follow-up? Yeah, if we use semiotics, Zilham Fahmi wants to know, do we need a follow-up with in-depth interview to get deeper understanding?
Yeah, like I said before, it is very good if we can combine this with other methodologies. So semiotics can be used as a standalone, but it's going to be stronger if you bring the semiotic finding to your consumers, either via IDI or focus groups. So it's a very good combination, and we've done this kind of thing in the past. Sometimes we also try to extract the cultural science by doing the interviews as well.
Okay, there is another question from Yasha Chatap. Oh, okay. It's just a feedback in terms of the Bahasa Indonesia.
Yeah, thank you, Yasha.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
all right, so any more questions? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Just on that one, I think, Yasha, we're more than happy to talk you through this presentation in Bahasa on a separate discussion if you wish. Just please get in touch.
Yeah, perhaps that would be a one-on-one kind of session where we can elaborate more in Bahasa. Okay, any more questions before we end the session? Great questions so far. Yeah. Let me check again. Any last question? Nope. So I suppose that's all the time we have also. Hang on just a second. Okay, I suppose that's about it. Thank you very much for your participation in today's webinar and for your questions. Now, want to find out more about how we can use semiotics to help your brands. We will update you on the next webinar date. Because of the Lebaran holiday, our webinar series will take a short break, but rest assured, we'll send you the update on when is the next one. And finally, all of us at Illuminate would like to wish all of you Eid Mubarak, Selamat Hari Raya Idul Fitri, Maaf Lahir dan Batin. And on behalf of the whole Illuminate team, thank you very much for your participation in today's webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.